Ladies, gentlemen, Speakerhead Squad, what's going on? It's your boy Speakerhead and welcome back to another video. For those who've been watching the channel for a bit, you'll know I love building mega bases and I've built quite a few of them within the past year or so. In fact, I'm currently building a massive multi-base mega city that I eventually plan on making available for everyone to download. However, out of all the mega bases I've built, it seems like people really liked the all-in-one mega base I built a few months ago, since it's currently sitting at the most viewed video on my channel. So because you all really enjoyed that base build, I decided to build another completely different all-in-one mega base that I hope you all enjoy as well. But before we go over anything about this base, I want to quickly talk to you all about today's sponsor, Berrybyte. Berrybyte is a server hosting service that allows you to create and run dedicated servers on a wide variety of games, including Palworld. I've heard you all enjoy my upgrade guides due to them being simple and straight to the point, and thankfully setting up a server with Berrybyte is as well. All you have to do is decide on how many players you want on the server, whether you're on Xbox or Steam, and where you want the server to be located. Luckily, they have servers across the globe, so no matter where you are, Berrybyte has you covered. And with their servers using the latest Ryzen-based hardware, you'll never have to worry about a laggy experience while hosting your server. And just like that, you can have a private dedicated server for you and your friends to play on. They even have configurable backups for your world, so you don't ever have to worry about losing your progress. Plus, with their affordable prices for Palworld servers starting at just $7 a month, there's no better place to get an awesome dedicated server. On top of their great prices, if you use my promo code SPEAKER20, then you can save yourself an extra 20% off your next server. Once again, that promo code is SPEAKER20 to save yourself an extra 20% off your next server. So if you're interested in hosting a dedicated server or just want to support the channel in general, you can check out Berrybyte by clicking the links in the description below. Thank you very much, Berrybyte, for sponsoring the channel, and without further ado, let's get back into the video. Finally, just a friendly reminder that if you enjoy any of the music you hear during this video or just want to support the channel in general, it's all part of my DMCA free music label Speakerhead Studios, which you can also find in the description below. But with all that out of the way, let's get back to the video. So to start things off, I want to quickly go over the general dimensions of this base along with where it's located. Talking about base dimensions first, since this base is much different than any other base I've built, I've separated all the floors into this confusing diagram, which I'll go over each part shortly here. Now the first part I want to go over is the ring around the base. This is going to represent your base circle along with the wooden walls circling your entire base. It's kind of difficult to explain, but if you build two walls angled in at once, build one wall angled in twice, and then keep repeating that process, then you should be able to make a circle of walls that perfectly fits inside the base circle. Also, to get the walls placed perfectly inside the base circle, I recommend building a PAL box in the spot you want your base to be built, building your walls where you think that they're all generally going to be in the circle, and then finally dismantle and rebuild your PAL box in range of all your walls if they weren't in range before. This will save you a lot of time compared to attempting to rebuild the circle in range over and over again. I also recommend building the floors you want to be placed underneath your PAL box before finalizing its placement, since you won't be able to adjust them after the PAL box has been placed. But getting back to the diagram, that's what that ring is going to represent. So moving on to the next section here, and that's going to be the main floor, which is represented by blue. I will mention that it can be pretty difficult to place these floors perfectly like this so they don't interfere with the outer walls. In fact, there's one corner in my base that I couldn't place a couple floors, so even mine isn't perfect. However, you want to try your best to place your floor as centered as you can underneath your PAL box. So moving on to the next part of this diagram, and that's going to be the main building in the very center, which is represented by green. While I could have shown more details in the diagram, such as staircases, the main part is going to be the highlighted section shown, but essentially this area is where a main chunk of the base is going to be. Now on to the last section of the diagram, which is represented by red, and that's going to be the platforms on the outer walls. While in this diagram it looks like some of them might be out of the circle, in the game the circle is actually a little bit bigger than this, so all of them should actually fit inside your base. I'll also mention that even though it seemed like the outer walls did support the floors above them, I did put some pillars all around the interior just to be safe. But now that we've gone over everything in this diagram, the last dimensions I wanted to go over on this base was the overall height. While normally I break down the dimensions of each floor, there are a lot of different rooms and floors of all different sizes, so instead I'm just going to mention that the overall height of this structure is going to be 9 walls high, and that's including with the roof at the very top. Finally, the last thing I want to mention is where the specific base is located, which I'll put that on screen right now. But for those who have seen my Pal Farm Mega Base video, this is in fact the same location I built that base. I also didn't replace that base with this one, since I built this new one on a copy of my other world, so that one's safe on there. But now that we've gone over all the basics for this base, let's actually hop into the game and start taking a look at everything. Alright, so here we are in my world, and as you can see, we are right in front of my all-in-one mega base here, and overall I'm pretty happy with how this thing turned out. Now I will mention right away that I'm going to be going through all this fairly quick here, and that's just because all of my other base videos have been fairly long, so I'd like to keep this one a little bit shorter than those. And to help with this, I made sure to take over 100 pictures of this base, which can all be found in the description of this video, so if you want to check out all those pictures of this entire base, those are available down there. But without further ado, let's actually start going going through this base here. So as you can see, we have this main front door right here. I'll also mention, obviously I use the wooden walls and door right here, but you could always replace these with either stone or metal ones if you want some more reinforced walls. But actually going into the base here now, so this is going to be the very entrance of the base. So we got a staircase right here, some water fountains, and a bunch of other stuff which we'll go over shortly. But to just kind of work left or right here, just going around this entire ring. So like I said, we got some water fountains and some nice spas for our pals here. We do also have a little area underneath here. Currently on this side there isn't anything underneath here, but there is a little storage area right underneath the staircase if you need it. But moving on here, so we're gonna have our nice little bell tower right here, so in case we have any invaders we can set our pals to be ready to attack them. But then next to the bell we do have our Japanese style spa, and I really love these. I just love how it has a tree attached to it. It just looks awesome. But then moving on here, we have a lot of our mining sites. So right here we have our coal mining site and our lumber mining site. We also have plenty of chests all around to make sure that all of their supplies can be stored nicely. I will admit, with a lot of the ores, they will just kind of get thrown into random chests since they're all just labeled as ore, but they do end up going to all these chests. But then moving on here, as you can see, we do have one of the large fishing stations fit in here, and I'm really happy I was able to fit this into this base. I think it looks awesome. And as you can see, we do have one Anubis just kind of sitting around waiting to fish. He was fishing earlier. I just got him assigned there at the moment, but we do got that guy working here as well. I also did make sure to put a chest right next to where you actually collect all the items from the fishing station, so that way you have a nice easy spot to store all that stuff you get. But then moving on here, so we're gonna have a couple more mining sites. So we're gonna have our stone one right here, and then our regular ore mining site right here as well. Now unfortunately I wasn't able to fit the Mark II mining site just because it's way too big for the space that I ended up building, but I'm glad I was able to get at least the regular ore mining site here. But then moving around to the rest of this side, I will mention right here, this is the corner that I wasn't able to fit a few extra floors. I believe there should be a floor right where this tree is, along with right here, but sadly just the way I built this circle, it's slightly out of range and it ends up getting in the way of these outer walls. So like I said earlier in the video, don't worry if you're not able to fit every single one of these floors into this space. Unfortunately, it is a pretty tricky situation to get them all to fit inside the circle without them actually getting in the way of those walls. But moving on here, and I'll also mention, if you haven't noticed it by now, we do have plenty of these lights all around the base. I've just been using these because honestly I'm tired of putting ones on the ceiling. It's just kind of a pain to line them up and everything, so I just decided to put some on the floor. But I did want to mention the lights fast, since I'm probably not really going to be pointing these out for the rest of the video, but we do have plenty of these all around the base to keep this lit up at night. Then moving on to this side here, this is going to have another staircase here to get to this outer wall, but then we're also going to have this little building right here, which you can kind of see in already. But in this building here, we do just have a bunch of accumulators. We got 6 of them in total in this entire 2-story thing here. But instead of keeping these all towards the center of my base like I normally do in most of my base builds, I decided to put them on the edge, since a lot of these stacked up together can actually start to lag your game a bit. I will admit a lot of that probably just has to do with my garbage PC, because it already has so many issues as it is, but it does end up lagging my game a bit if a lot of these are kind of stacked together. But long story short, this is where all of our electricity is going to be stored. And I will mention as well that there is no wall in the very back here. It's just going to be blocked off by this wooden wall here, so just keep that in mind as well if you build this. I'll even quickly hop up here so you guys can see. So if you actually just look right up there, that is completely open. So if you're wondering why you can't place a wall back there, don't worry, mine is set up the same exact way. But then moving on the tour here, as you can see, we do have a very similar layout at the staircase compared to the other side. I think we just actually have these plants on this side. I forgot to put them over there, but essentially the same exact layout. And then just like the other side as well, we do have a little area underneath this staircase, and I do have some stuff stored underneath here. This is mainly just stuff I didn't really know where to put around the base. I probably will eventually end up integrating this stuff around the base, but for right now, just to make sure I got those work speed and sanity boosts, I just put them all underneath the staircase. But then moving on to this next section here, we do have a hexalite mining station, so if you need to mine some hexalite, this is where I got it, just stuffed in this corner. Then on this other side here, we're also going to have a sulfur mining station, so you can mine that as well. And then besides the mining stations we got over here, we do also have a PAL expedition station, which I'm super happy I was able to incorporate into this base. Obviously there is a bit of a flaw with this, since it does leave this entire wall open for pals to be able to get into, especially during raids. But that being said, if you just get rid of the PAL expedition station, you should be able to close up this wall no problem. I'll also mention too that if you do want to end up building a PAL expedition station at any base, that you're going to have to build everything you want around it first, and then finally build the PAL expedition station, or else this is just going to get in the way of everything. But then moving on to the rest of this inner circle here. So we're gonna have our pure quartz mining station along with our Japanese style spa on the other side, like I mentioned earlier. Finally, I do have a couple of these advanced chests set up right here for the expedition station, so that way anything you can get, you can quickly store right here. So now that we've gone over everything on this main floor here, let's move up to this outer wall here. So let's go up this staircase quick. But up here, it isn't going to be anything super crazy, so we're just going to have 3 machine guns on each side here with a couple of these Yakumo statues, because I really like these Yakumo statues. But then we're also just going to have some crates here to store all of our ammunition for the machine guns, so we got plenty in each of these crates. But quickly sprinting around this ring here, so we do have some weapon workstations here on all of these corners, so that way you're able to craft any ammo in case you need it. We also do have machine guns at every corner of the base, so every angle of this base is covered. Then just moving around the rest of this circle, we do have machine guns on this side. I will admit that the PAL expedition station does get in the way a little bit, but it is still there. But then just quickly sprinting around the rest of this ring here, all of this is going to be essentially the same here, just got a bunch of machine guns and anything you need for any sort of raids or anything like that. But now that we're done running around this ring up here and quickly showing this off, let's move on to the main building here. So to get into the first floor, we do have 6 main entrances here, 1 on each side as you can see, along with 4 on each corner. But if you end up coming in here, we're gonna have a bunch of workstations along with a bunch of other stuff which we'll go over. I also apologize about any lag spikes you might experience during this video. Sadly, I've been trying to work on it, but I've just come to the conclusion that this computer is just complete garbage, so I'm working on getting a new one. It's just not the cheapest thing to do, but long story short, apologies for any sort of lag. But getting back to the tour, as I mentioned, we do have all of our workstations down here. So we have our weapons workstation on this wall, we have our regular workstation right here, and then finally we have our sphere one right there on that wall. So we got all of our workstations here on this main floor. I'll also mention I did make sure to test all these workstations before actually making this video, since I know a lot of people have had issues with their pals not being able to reach certain workstations at my other base builds. Unfortunately, there's no sort of advice I can really give. It's just an issue that the game has. Even I have those issues when I load into my world, but I did want to quickly mention it since I know some people will probably have issues as well. But sadly, I really don't have any solutions to help you if pals can't reach certain spots. Essentially, you'll just have to keep kind of tweaking things until you're able to actually make things work at your base. But like I said, I did make sure to actually test all this stuff before making this video. But then getting back to the tour again, once again, sorry for all the little tangents here. We got a bunch of little pal pods for all of our pals right here. And then obviously in the middle as well, we do have a pal condenser, and I did have to leave that spot in the roof open or else this wouldn't have fit down here. And then finally, I decided to just put a couple of these Japanese style lanterns all around the top here. They don't really do any lighting, but I think they look nice. So now that we've gone over everything on this side of the wall here, let's flip over to the other side here with these other rooms. So just kind of working left to right here. So we do have our giant furnace in this corner, so you are able to cook everything you need. But then in this room, if you couldn't see by this giant structure, this is where we're going to have our oil extractors to get all of our oil. And I made sure to actually add these onto this base, since I know in my other all-in-one build base that I didn't have any sort of oil extractors. So if you want an all-in-one base with oil extractors, this is going to be the one for you. But we currently only have 2 of these set up in here. You could technically do the dual strat and kind of line them up so you actually have 4 oil extractors in here. But considering I barely use oil these days, I figured that having 2 fully upgraded ones, especially with the PAL Labor Research Laboratory upgrades, I figured 2 of them would be totally fine. But then the last thing in this room is just going to be these advanced chests, and that's just going to be for easy access for your oil. Honestly, you probably could get away with just having 1 or 2 of these here, but I decided to have 4 just to make sure I had plenty of room. But then moving on to this next room here, this is going to be another little storage room along with where we generate our electricity. So I just kind of walked in here, but it's going to be this main center room right in front of our PAL box here, which by the way, this is where our PAL box is going to be placed. But like I was saying, this room is just going to have a few different chests just for some easy storage access along with our generator in there. And as you can see, while we're standing in front of it, Orsurk is actually able to get in that room and generate that electricity. If he wasn't able to, he would just stand in place, but he actually is able to get in there, which is nice. But then the only other thing in this room here is going to be that pylon up there, and I just got some glass blocking it off, but we got that just for that extra work speed for electricity. And then in this room here is just going to be a general kind of work room, so we do have our drafting table along with some PAL costume stations. As you can also see, we have a bunch of chests stacked up in this corner, and that's going to be for easy access for all your schematics. I figured if you're going to be using this crafting table to craft up a bunch of schematics, you might as well have an easy spot to store them, you know? But then in this room, we also just have our bed for our player along with a little medical rack, so that way all of our pals can stay nice and healthy. But then the only other things in this room is going to be an ice crusher, and you got a little chest right next to that to store anything you need to get from that. And then we also have a little repair bench just for some easy access for that as well. But then the very last thing in this room is going to be this food box right here. We do have a few spots for these, such as up by the gardens, but we do have one on the first floor just for some easy access. Obviously, I don't have any pals cooling it right now, but if I do have a bunch of pals working at this base, I would have a pal cooling this. But But that is everything in this room here, and once again, sorry if I'm going through things fairly quick. That's why I did take all those pictures, but that is going to be everything in this room. But then moving back out here, so you guys did see these staircases here, and up here is just an extra little room if you'd like to use it. Personally, I just put a bunch of pal pods up here because for those who might not know, I usually play with 50 pals working at my base rather than the normal 15. And because I really didn't have any other spots to put pal pods, I decided to put them all up here in this extra little storage area. But to just go over everything up here, like I said, we just got a bunch of pal pods along with this awesome Moonlord statue you get for being the ultra version of that guy. And then the only other thing that's going to be on this floor here is going to be our little monitoring stand, since I honestly really didn't know where else to put it. But then behind the monitoring stand, we just got a few more spots for storing stuff, and you can see that pile on a bit better back here. But that is going to be everything that is up here. Obviously, if you're only using 15 pals, you don't need all these pal pods up here, so you could use this for really anything you want. But like I said, I normally have around 50 pals working at my base, so it's nice to have all these pal pods ready to go in case I need to place any pals. But then moving down here, we're going to actually go back outside, and that's how you get to the second floor here, the actual second floor. So on both sides of the building here, as you saw, we do have some staircases, and if you go up these, that's how you'll get to the second floor. But up in the second floor here, as you can see, there is a lot going on. We will be going over all of it. Once again, sorry for the lag. I hate it as much as you guys, trust me, but this is everything that's going to be on this floor. So to work from this side, kind of working to the other side. So obviously we're going to have a pal breeding station here, which I'm super happy I was able to fit into this space. I will mention, out of everything I was able to fit in this space, sadly I actually wasn't able to fit a ranch on this space. But that being said, if you want to build a whole nother layer on this space and fit that on there, you can, but sadly I wasn't able to fit one here. Plus, I'll be honest, I usually just buy all my milk and eggs from merchants these days, so that's why I really don't care about it. But I did want to mention that since I'm sure somebody will notice that. But like I said, we do have our breeding station here, and we do have some incubation stations on both sides with some chests, so that way you can store any extra eggs you get. But then rotating around here, we do have another food box here. I might end up eventually getting rid of this one since we do have one on every floor, but we do have a food box right here. And then towards the back here, we do have a ladder. I will go over what all this is in a little bit here, but on this side here, we have a bunch of other stuff. So to kind of work left to right here, we have our Pal Labor Research Laboratory with a little crate right there just for some storage. Moving on, we have another drafting table, just to have another one there, and then we do have one of the advanced medical stations as well. In the middle here, we do have obviously our global Pal box, pretty obvious, but we do have access to it right there. On the other side here, we do have our dimensional Pal box, and you could probably store that on the lower floor if you really wanted to, but I just figured it fit nice right there. We also have a Pal gear station right next to that, just to make sure you can craft any gear for your pals you need. And then finally, we do have the Pal surgery table, so you can upgrade your pals if you want to. So if it wasn't obvious, this is kind of the general Pal upgrading spot, which we'll go over more of it in this outer part here, but this is generally going to be where you're going to be doing all of your upgrades for pals. But then moving on to this little balcony spot here, we do have some statues of power on both sides here, along with a little mini pal box so you can access your pals. I also decided to put these cauldrons out here since I thought they looked pretty nice out here. But once again, as I mentioned before, this upper floor is definitely going to be the spot where you're going to be doing all the upgrades for your pals, so I tried to make sure all this was in this general area. But that is going to be everything to go over on this floor here, so then we're on to this next floor, which is going to be up this staircase here. And once again, we will be going over everything in this big room right here. Funny enough, you actually got to go around the other side to get to the other staircase. But then actually coming up this staircase here, we got a little sign signifying this is how you get down to the second floor. But then we also got some little mud statues right next to it because I really like the look of these guys. I think they always look nice. But then getting to the main part of this floor, and this is where all of our gardens and stuff are going to be. So starting on this side here, we do have some mills on each side along with these little bell towers, so in case you're working up here and you get attacked, you can have your pals set to attack. But then actually moving on to the crops here, so we have 2 berry plants and then one of every other one, so you got plenty of ways to get crops up here. And then finally on the other side here, we're gonna have 2 skill fruit orchards so that we can grow skill fruits up here as well, along with also having some crates up here for some easy storage for those skill fruits. But then the only other things up here are going to be structures to upgrade our work speed, so this guy and then also this guy. Then moving on to the other staircase here, as you can see by the sign, this is how you get to our big storage room. And of course we do have some more Demud statues on both sides because like I said before, they just look nice. I'll also mention it since I'm currently kind of staring at it, the view on this base is absolutely amazing. For those who have seen my pal breeding base, you know I absolutely love this location because of the view, and it's the same with this base. I absolutely love it. You just get a great view of the mountain and everything. You also get a great view of the giant tree along with all of Sakurajima, so it's just a really nice spot to build a base. But enough about the views, let's actually go down in the storage room. So we do have little doors to get in here. But then in this storage room, we have a bunch going on. I'll try to go over it, but it is a lot. So for starters, on this side here, we do have a bunch of chests, just some of the regular kind of metal chests here. And the reason why I use these along this wall instead of the advanced chests, because you're actually able to get a lot more storage space since you're able to place a lot more of these along these walls compared to the advanced ones. But speaking of advanced chests, we're gonna have 6 of them right here along the side of our item retrieval machine. And then we also do have a little regular chest on both sides here just for some extra storage. But then running around to the front of the retrieval machine, we do have 2 more advanced chests right here, along with also having 6 more advanced chests on this side. So as you can see, we got plenty of storage up here. But then quickly spinning around, we also have our PAL disassembly machine up here, so that's really nice to actually have at this base as well. I also made sure to build a disassembly machine in this room with all the storage stuff, since I have a feeling a lot of people aren't going to want to carry all the stuff they get from this machine all the way to their storage area. So instead I decided to just make it nice and easy for everyone, so that way you just got to walk a few feet to put things in a chest. But then moving on to the rest of the room here, we're just gonna have a bunch more metal chests all lining this wall here. And then finally, the very last thing in this room is gonna be our coin assembly machine, so I'm really happy I was able to stuff this in here as well. And as you can see, we have a bunch of advanced chests floating above it here. And all I did to make this happen is I just stacked 4 advanced chests all the way up to the ceiling, and I just deleted the bottom 2. And luckily you don't need to do any sort of cheats or mods to make that happen, that's just how the game works. But yeah, essentially just got a bunch of extra storage just to store our gold or anything else you need up there. But then the last thing to point out in this room is we just got some more of these Japanese style lanterns up here. Once again, doesn't do any actual lighting, but they're just really nice to have around the base. But now that we've actually gone through this room, that's everything I actually have to go over on this base here. So all we're gonna do is just get a quick view of it from the outside, just circling with our good friend Steve here. But then to just quickly hop out here, this is what the base is generally gonna look like all from the outside here. Once again, I am personally really proud of how this thing turned out. I think it just looks awesome. I just really like the aesthetic of this space, and I hope you guys do as well. But now that we've actually gone over everything on this space, that's gonna essentially wrap things up here. And I don't really plan on going over the pals I have working on that base, and that's for a couple reasons here. The first main one is I honestly just don't know what I'm gonna have working at this space. I have a general idea of pals that I would have working here, but I'm not totally sure on the final setup. Another reason why I'm not gonna go over the pals I have working at this base, because as I mentioned before, I usually have 50 pals working at a base, so a lot of people aren't gonna be really happy if I'm suggesting stuff that they're not gonna be able to do. But once again, that's why I'm not gonna go over the pals I have working at this base, because honestly, I just don't really know what I'm gonna have working here yet. Finally, I will mention that unlike all my other videos as well, I'm not gonna go over the base at night, because honestly, I think you guys got the gist of it during the daytime. The only thing you're really gonna see is the awful lighting Palworld has, because as you guys know, once you get out of range of the lights, they just completely turn off, and it's really annoying to deal with. So instead, we're just gonna end things here, and I'm gonna let the other me in our little studio take over from here. But with that walkthrough of this mega base complete, that's going to wrap up this base build video. Let me know what you think down below. Let me know if you enjoyed this video, and also feel free to leave some of your own building tips in the comments as well. Finally, once again, thanks to Berrybyte for sponsoring today's video. Make sure to check them out in the description below. But that's all I have to say for now, so thank you all so much for checking out this video. I really appreciate it, and I'll catch all y'all in the next one. Take it easy, everybody.